Lesson 4.8, Quadratic Formula!
The quadratic formula. Thanks to my son for introducing the lesson. And now we'll talk about what the quadratic formula is all about. We've done some factoring. We've done some square root method. We've simplified some square roots. And we've graphed quadratics. We've done a lot of things with quadratics, but the most important thing probably that you'll ever learn about quadratics is the quadratic formula. This is the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and all of this is divided by 2a. Okay? So the a and the b and the c come from a quadratic equation where a is the number in front of x squared, b is the number in front of x, and c is the constant that's at the end. Once we plug in the numbers to the quadratic formula, you get a solution. The quadratic formula always works. It works for factoring problems. It works for square root problems. It works for numbers or solutions where you have I. So the quadratic formula is kind of the end-all, be-all of quadratics. So here's an example. If we start with this problem, x squared plus 3x equals 2, the first thing we always have to do with quadratic equations is make sure that one of the sides is equal to 0. So I start this problem out by subtracting 2 from both sides. So now I have x squared plus 3x minus 2. Now I'm going to label a, b, and c. Remember, a is this number that's in front of x squared, which we know is 1, even though it's not actually written. The b is the number in front of x, which is 3. And the c is the constant at the end, which is negative 2. So to do the quadratic formula, I'm going to say x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. Notice that I'm not putting in a, b, and c. I'm putting the numbers in. The a is 1 and the b is 3. 3, and the c is negative 2. Alright, so I have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 2, and all of this is divided by 2 times a, which is 1. Now from here on out, all you're going to be doing is simplifying. So I have negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 4 times negative 2. 4 times 1 is 4 times negative 2. So I have 9 minus negative 8 divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. Let's simplify that further. Negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 2 negatives makes plus, so 9 plus 8 is 17, divided by 2. And 17 is not a perfect square, and 17 does not divide into anything else because it's actually a prime number. So our solution is negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 17 over 2. Keep in mind, anytime you see this plus or minus symbol, it means you have two solutions. So you could say this is negative 3 plus the square root of 17 divided by 2, and this is negative 3 minus the square root of 17 divided by 2, because there's two solutions. But it's just as good to just keep it as it is. Alright, let's try another one. Again, in this problem, we have to get it equal to 0 first. So 25x squared minus 18x. I'm going to subtract 12x and add 9 from both sides. If I combine my like terms, 25x squared minus 30x plus 9 equals 0. we've actually seen a problem very similar to this. Now we're going to use our quadratic formula. X is equal to negative b, and the b is negative 30. So I can say it's negative 30, or let's just make this really simple. If it says negative b, and the b is already negative, then you make it positive. So the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c. This is going to be a big number. And all of this is divided by 2 times a. Alright, so let's begin to simplify this. We have 30 plus or minus the square root of 900 minus 4 times 5. 4 times 25 is 100, times 9 is 900. Divided by 2 times 25, which is 50. So I have 30 plus or minus the square root of 0 over 50. The square root of 0 is 0. So it doesn't matter if we add it or if we subtract it, either way, we get 30 over 50, because adding or subtracting the square root of 0 doesn't change our value. So 30 over 50 will actually reduce and become 3/5. So the solution to this is 3/5, which is pretty simple number considering what we started out with. So x equals 3 over 5. This is a rare occurrence where we actually only have one solution, and that one solution is 3/5. And the reason we only have one solution is because what was inside my square root subtracted and became 0. Alright, let's try another one. Negative x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Now you know I don't generally like to have my x squared to be a negative number, but with the quadratic formula it's not going to matter, because a is going to be negative 1, b is going to be 4, and c is going to be negative 5. So when I go to my quadratic formula, x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 5. And all of this is divided by 2 times negative 1. So I'm going to write the formula again over here, because I know that I know it by heart, but it's really easy to forget. It was negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. All of that's divided by 2a. Okay, so we've already plugged in our numbers, and I want to go ahead and simplify this. So my x is going to be negative 4 plus or minus 16 minus 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. 4 times negative 1 times negative 5 is 20. So I have 16 minus 20 inside my square root. So continuing to simplify this, I'm going to have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 divided by negative 2. We just learned how to deal with this negative number when we have it inside of the square root. We know that that's going to be I, so I have negative 4 plus or minus. The negative here becomes I, that funny italicized I, but we also know the square root of 4 is 2. So negative 4 plus or minus 2i divided by negative 2. And we have to take one extra step, and this is one of the reasons we simplify our square roots. We can divide both of these numbers by negative 2. So I'm going to get x equals positive 2, because negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2, plus or minus 2i divided by 2, which is going to be I. And because of the plus or minus symbol right here, I don't have to worry about the divided by a negative because it's still going to be plus or minus. So my solution is x equals 2 plus or minus I. And now I have a problem for you to work on your own. Here's your setup. Don't forget x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a.